treat. Natalie and I have been talking about writing this book for way too long. I don't know how many years it's been, but we decided, somebody told us about this strategy of writing a book by just hosting 10 or 12 webinars, and then each webinar becomes one of the chapters. So that is the game plan. And I wish I could give you a better explanation of why, but it just felt like there's a book that's burning inside of us, and we don't know what would happen, and we don't want to know what would happen if we don't get it out. So we're just trying to follow those little nudges, little promptings, and we'll see where it takes us. So let me share my screen. So the working title is Love Works, a workbook to live a life full of purpose and love. And that's really our intention, is to show how love is not just this airy-fairy, feel-good idea, that love actually is effective, that love is a strategy for doing life, for doing business, for doing relationships, and it works 100% of the time. And so we want to create this space and have the book be a workbook for you to be able to create a roadmap of a life that you love and a life that works. And so we found that when that life is imbued with purpose and meaning and love, that there's incredible harmony and synergy, and everything just feels good. It feels right. And so that's the intention of this book, is to give you what little we've learned in our short journey, and to be a launch pad for you to have a life of love and purpose. So I'm going to kick off by laying the framework. And we'll be talking a lot about doTERRA in this book, simply because that's been such a huge part of our journey. We spent the last 13 years building a team in doTERRA, which is an essential oil company. And I honestly believe that these principles can be applied to any type of business. I think it's especially applicable to network marketing and direct sales, but we'll be using doTERRA as the framework for a lot of the stories and a lot of the principles. So hopefully this serves you wherever you are and whatever vehicle you've chosen to build with. So I'm going to start out with a story, and this is the framework for a lot of what we'll be discussing. So I want you to imagine seeds being cast in two different places. One of them, some of the seeds are cast in fertile soil, really rich, organic, yummy soil, and some seeds just falling among rocks, really arid, dry, not so healthy. So both seeds take root, they both start to grow. But when the heat of the sun comes, the seeds that fell among the rocky soil wither up and die, whereas the seeds that were planted in the fertile soil thrive and grow and prosper. So what I'd like to propose to you today is that the pot of fertile soil, any pot of soil, is a symbol for us as a person. And that pot has at least 5 different dimensions. So who we are as a person, you can't just look at it from any one dimension. You have to look at the whole person. And so I would say that there are at least 5 core dimensions of who we are as a being. There's the social, that's our relationships, our marriage, our family. There's our mental, that's our intellectual, the things we're learning, the stretching of our mind and intellect, and then our spiritual. And regardless of your spiritual understanding, I believe that each of us has a spiritual dimension. And then physical, that's obviously your body, the health, anything that has to do with your physical experience, and then your financial. So in this analogy, doTERRA is the seed, or whatever your vehicle is that you've chosen, and the pot is the whole person. So like I said, each of us have these 5 dimensions of our being, and we can't ignore any of the 5. And you could almost think of each of these 5 as its own world, its own pot of soil, if you will. So in those 5 dimensions, each of us has needs. And in this analogy, the water that comes and waters the plant, the seed, is love. And then the heat of the sun is symbolic of resistance. Anything that comes to stand in the way of you living your highest purpose is resistance. So Natalie and I have found that in every situation, love works. Love is the water that connects us all together, that gives us hope, that gives meaning to our experiences, and really just becomes this amazing force that it nourishes the soil, it gives the seed a space to open up and grow, and becomes just the lubricant for this whole machine of life to work. So we've found that love has the most healing properties of any force on earth. It has the strongest binding force of anything on earth. And so when you are creating a team in doTERRA, or in any company, you are the author of the culture. You get to create whatever it is you want. And so love is the greatest culture to grow in. So whatever team culture you have created, or whatever culture you want to create, make sure that love is a big part of it. So we'll come back to this one later. But for right now, the sun obviously is not just resistance. The sun is necessary. It's a healthy thing. But it's built into the universe, right? This idea that opposition comes. There's this constant downward drag. There's weeds, there's animals, there's pests, there's, in this analogy, so many things that could hurt that tender plant and could take away from its growth and health. So resistance comes along, and we get to choose how we respond to it. In the case of the seeds that fell among the rocks, those seeds withered up and died. And that's mostly because they didn't have deep roots. If a plant has deep, healthy roots, then it can withstand the heat of the day and the exposure to the sun. But in this case, it didn't. And so it withered and died. So what can we do to drive deep roots? What can we do to create this fertile culture of love and a soil where we thrive and those around us thrive? And I believe that it's by using that resistance, using the opposition, accepting it as part of the equation and choosing to move through it instead of just quitting when the going gets hard. So the best way we've found to do that is to have love be the start and finish, to pour love into our team, regardless of how they're showing up, to love in a way that's unconditional, and it changes them in a powerful way. So using the resistance is, to me, it's an invitation to lean in when it's hard, to look for the purpose and meaning in the things that don't feel good. You know, like when we get feedback from someone that hurts, when we have an experience with someone that's painful, when we have days that just don't go right, or weeks or months, when doTERRA hits resistance, you know, when we got the FDA letter in 2015, or when we had the security breach shortly thereafter. If we can use those experiences and metabolize them, we come out stronger and better for it. So there are some great books on resistance, and I'm not going to go into too much, but one of my favorites is the War of Art, not to be confused with The Art of War. This one is actually about the creative process and resistance in that process. So in that book, these are my favorite quotes. Most of us have two lives: the life we live and the unlived life within us. Between the two stands resistance. Have you ever bought a treadmill and let it gather dust in the attic? Have you ever quit a diet, a course of yoga, a meditation practice? Have you ever bailed on a spiritual practice to dedicate yourself to a humanitarian calling, to commit your life to the service of others? Have you ever wanted to be a mother, a doctor, an advocate for the weak and helpless, to run for office, to crusade for the planet, to campaign for world peace, or to preserve the environment? Late at night, have you experienced a vision of the person you might become, the work you could accomplish, the realized being you are meant to be? Are you a writer who doesn't write, a painter who doesn't paint, an entrepreneur who never starts a venture? Then you know what resistance is. And that's Stephen Pressfield who wrote that book. So how many of you can relate to this, right? Like, there are times when we are just on this spiritual high, like epiphanies and revelations about who we are and who we could be. And we just feel called to these amazing causes. And then Tuesday morning comes, and, you know, we've got doctor's visits, and we've got dentist appointments, and there's a pandemic. Whatever the shape or form of resistance takes, it shows up reliably. It always has and always will. And so we, as free agents, get to choose how we respond to that resistance. And if you are looking for a great read, the War of Art is a fantastic read on rising up to this challenge and pushing through it. So those are the 5 dimensions. And just like that pot of soil, there's depth to that pot, right? And so you can't just think, if I've helped somebody with their physical needs in doTERRA, one of those needs, then they get the power, they get the potential, and I don't need to worry about that. The fact is, we all have such varied experiences, and we all have so much depth of needs in each of these 5 areas that it takes years of nurturing people in these 5 dimensions for that seed to truly take deep root in each of these areas. So that might mean doing regular checkups with your builders on what are their physical needs and how can we help solve those and meet those needs. What are their social, right? Especially during this pandemic, we've all seen just how much social need there is, how starved we all are for that social connection, and how creative we can be at pouring into those needs. So despite restrictions, we can still meet those needs. So same thing applies to all these 5 dimensions. So the main idea is that each of us has unmet needs in all of these dimensions. And the more you can pour love into the people around you, the more you can serve them in each of these 5 areas and in greater depth, the deeper connection and the greater trust will be created. And as we've all learned, business and life happens at the speed of trust. This is true in marriage. This is true with your children. This is true with business partnerships. Things only progress as fast as trust is deep. Stephen M. R. Covey's book on the speed of trust is my favorite on that topic. And all I can say is it's worth doing a real deep dive on how much trust you think you have in your core relationships, and then doing a survey to find out how much trust you actually have. Just asking the key people in your life how they would rate the level of trust in your relationship. And here's a key learning there. You might think that, let's say you gave the relationship a score of 9 and they gave the relationship a score of 6. You might think, oh, maybe if I average the 2, that's the real score. Actually, whatever score they gave you is the actual score. So that can be good news. It could be bad news. Just depends on the relationship. So love is the soil. Why don't we pause right there and see if we have any questions so far? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are so far, or any questions before we dive into the next section. You can just post it in the comments in the chat box. Okay, well, if we have no other questions, then we will carry on. So that was the introduction of the book, if you will. The first chapter of the book is called Love is Work. So, love is work. What I mean by that is that love is a verb. Love is not just this nice emotion that we experience sometimes. Love is something that we act out in our day-to-day lives, and it's not easy. It's work. It's the most fulfilling thing we'll ever do. Loving those around us, but it's also work. So sometimes when we're experiencing love, there is that warm, fuzzy feeling, and sometimes there isn't. But love is the commitment to keep showing up with or without the warm and fuzzy. Love is a commitment to the people that we're doing life with, even when it's messy, even when we don't feel like it, even when they're not showing up in a way that feels deserving of our love. So love is it's a verb. It's translating your intentions, translating your values into the physical world, right? So this is taking things off your vision board and off your value statements and actually mobilizing it in the three-dimensional world. So just to give you a few examples of that, we have had so many amazing experiences in our doTERRA journey. And we've had, we've had builders that we've mentored who have gone all the way to double blue diamond. And we've had other builders that we've mentored all the way to platinum, and then they've quit. We've had lots who have built to blue diamond, and then they've slipped back a few ranks. We've had many that we've mentored to premier and silver, and some of those have quit. But there's one thing that I've observed about Natalie as people have shown up in varying degrees. Her commitment to them is undying. She is the most loving mentor that I've ever seen. When someone comes to her and says, I want to do this business and I want to do it with you, to her, that is like a soul contract. And there have been times when our plates have been so full that she's had to say, I don't have space for that level of commitment. And so I'm going to refer you to any of my team leaders to work with them. And that hasn't gone so well sometimes. But to me, that's a tribute to her commitment to the one, to showing up in love and showing up in just this long-term vision and play that I've never seen anything like it in my life. So people often ask us, what's the key to your success in doTERRA? And it's a really short, simple answer for me. It's love. When I see Natalie, just to give you one example, we had, I don't want to get too specific here. Let's just say we've had builders who they said they were doing the business, and Natalie would keep mentoring them even when they weren't doing the business. And that went for months, like over a year plus. And that's Natalie's willingness to believe in someone even when they don't believe in themselves. That's her willingness to hold space for someone and create a space even before they're choosing to live into it. And so there's, the flip side of that coin is, at what point do you draw a line in the sand and say, I have to have boundaries and I have to, control my energy, because let's say you've got 10 committed builders who say they're committed and you mentor them on a weekly basis, but none of them are doing anything and they're not getting results, and you're not, it's just not sustainable. Clearly there's a time and a space to say, let's take a pause from doTERRA mentoring. And when you're ready, please show back up. I'm going to be here with open arms, and I will cheer for you to the finish line. So clearly there's a space for boundaries. And I would say that it's on you to first create the space of love, to create that, to water that fertile soil of the new builder, so that there's acceptance and there's, if there's any desire at all on their part, that you're able to just to be the container for them to thrive and flourish in. So the level of belief that Natalie has in people, I have to admit, she's believed in so many that I've struggled to believe in. And to her credit, like many of those people have proven me wrong, and they've gone on to become incredible leaders, and they've made huge impact. So that's our first invitation, is to love first, to go first. I think there's this unwritten, I don't know where it comes from, but a lot of times in relationships, we wait for the other person to go first. And what that could look like is waiting for the other person to ask you on a date, or waiting for the other person to, in doTERRA, waiting for them to respond to an invitation, waiting for them to ask you about the business. Or if they have said yes, waiting for the builder to host their first class, waiting for them to, turn in their names list. And what I love to see Natalie do is, anytime somebody has said, I want to build this business with you, then she goes first. And what that looks like in mentoring is she says, let's set up weekly mentoring right now, because this is how I'm going to show up for you. And I'm not going to wait for some magical, for you to start enrolling or for you to start inviting. Like, we're going to set up mentoring day one, just from you showing interest. And so that's what going first looks like in doTERRA. It means in the early years, when she had people who were buying doTERRA but weren't building, Natalie got them on the phone and said, hey, if I bought you a ticket to convention, would you come? Would you at least show up? And first she invited them to buy their own ticket. The answer was no. And so she said, I'll pay for the ticket if you'll use it, if you'll show up every day. And so there were two builders who were sisters, Robin and Robin Jones and Cherie Burton. And they showed up, and they went on to become one's blue and one's presidential diamond. And so that's what going first has looked like in another setting. So go first is this principle of don't sit back and wait for other people to earn your love. Go first. Love them anyways. And maybe a little bit of groundwork there too. We have this crazy belief that everyone in the world loves each other with a perfect unconditional love. But some of us have forgotten that to one degree or another. So visualize with me a web of love that spans the entire world. Every single person has, just this effulgent love, right? It pours out of them, and they instinctively love every other person. But maybe culture, maybe life experience, whatever has helped them forget that perfect unconditional love. So the way, some evidence that I've found for this is when I look at children. When I see 2 and 3-year-olds playing together, they don't need an introduction to start playing with another child their age. They don't need that child to be edified. They don't need the other parent. They don't need their parent to say, this child is so-and-so. They come with these credentials. It's fine for you to go play with them. You're safe. Like kids just play and love and forgive so freely. And to me, that's the clearest evidence I know of that is our natural state. That's where we came from, and that's where we're returning to. And so our opportunity is to return to that sooner rather than later, to return to a state of, I love you no matter what. I love everyone no matter what. And anything that anyone does that seems hurtful is either an act of love or a cry for more love. So I love Byron Katie. We went to a live training of hers, and she said, I'm perfectly clear that everyone in the world loves me. I just don't expect them to remember that. And I love that space that she comes from. And so the sooner we can remember that love is who we are. It's where we came from, and it's just a process of unlearning all the layers that we've piled on top of that. I think adults are just broken children. The sooner we can become like children again, in that innocent, trusting, loving state, the sooner we return to joy and bliss. So another aspect of love, another evidence, I guess, of why I believe love is our natural state. Natalie and I have been to a lot of personal development, and we're especially drawn to any kind of training around life purpose. Some people call it soul purpose, life vision. It's It's this idea that we were born to fulfill a higher mission, and awakening to that purpose or that mission is a return to our highest best self. And so Natalie and I have spent literally 6 figures on just that type of training. And it's fascinating as we attend these trainings, and we've run some as well. It's almost like there's a script. Because it doesn't matter who's running the training, doesn't matter what their agenda is. When people go through these processes of self-discovery, of self-awareness around their higher mission and purpose, we've seen a common theme emerge. Among men, most men feel called to be a teacher of some sort. And most women feel called to be a healer of some sort. And so over and over and over, we would see these mission statements of women who feel called to open a healing center, and men who feel called to open a training center, or to run retreats, or whatever the shape is. But the thing that unites the two is every person we've ever seen has always felt called to serve. They've felt called to live out a level of love in the form of serving others. And so, again, to me, that's just this huge witness that love is who we are. Love is, it's the DNA. It's in our DNA. It's the matter that we humans are made of. That love is more real than maybe even our physical world. And so, so that's the second experience we've had that just drives home this idea that that we were born to be beings of love. There's another argument that I recently heard to support this idea, and it's this idea of proving contraries, right? So there are so many contraries that you need a balance in your life. And so justice and mercy is a great example. If you have too much justice and not enough mercy, things get out of whack fast. If there's too much mercy and not enough justice, same thing. And so we have to prove the contraries. And this particular thought leader gave a dozen different examples. But the one thing that he said doesn't have a contrary is love. You can't overdo it on love. There's no way to put your life out of whack by loving people too much. So to me, that's just a third witness that love is why we're here. So I want to shift gears now and move this into an experiential process, and give you the chance to start journaling on some of these ideas. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and then I'll just play some music and let you journal. So I just want to create a space where you're comfortable, you're relaxed, and you can just reflect on some of these questions. So let's start off with, The first question, what is your relationship with work? What is your relationship with work? When you think of work, do you think it's something I want to go towards or something I want to run from? When you think of work, do you think of just one segment of your life, maybe earning income? Or is work more all-encompassing for you? Is work something that you connect more to others or to yourself? So let's just journal for a few minutes about your relationship with work. All right. Next question, related to that one, is what are your core beliefs about work? What are your core beliefs about work? Are your beliefs that life is work? That you just work until you're dead? Do you believe that work is an unnecessary evil? Or sorry, a necessary evil? Do you believe that work is a gift? Or is it a burden? Or a little of both? What do you feel the purpose of work is? All right, next question. How addicted are you to work? So, what I mean by this um, is it a consistent and recurring issue to have work squeezing out other important parts of your life, like health or relationships or social? Have there been consistent and regular damage to other parts of your life because of your relationship to work? And the reason I bring this one up is because this is a clear yes for me and Natalie, and something we're still working on. So you could rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being full-blown addict, 1 being not at all. What level, where is your addiction level to work? Okay, moving on to the next topic of love. What is your relationship with love? What is your relationship with love? Would you say that love is your natural state? How naturally does love flow through you? How naturally is love your default position in any new relationship? What is your relationship with love? And then the last question, how much do you love your work? And you could rate this on a 1 to 10, 10 being the most, 1 the least. And you could break this down into the multiple facets of your work. You could use these 5 dimensions to rate how much you love your work. Social could be the level of the work that you do in your marriage or family, with your friends, right? Mental, how much do you love the work of learning and developing? Spiritual, how much do you love spiritual work? Whether that's meditation or prayer or service. Physical, how much do you love the work of being healthy, the work of making your body an instrument? And financial, how much do you love that work of producing and creating value? All right. Well, that is the end of our content for chapter 1. I'd love to hear any feedback that you've got. If you want to come on live, just raise your hand and we can bring you on live. Or if you want to type any feedback in the chat. Any epiphanies or breakthroughs you had. What parts were useful, what parts were not, or less useful. This is one of the main reasons we're doing this as webinars, is so we can get your feedback. We want to keep a tight feedback loop so that we can make sure this content is useful, it's relevant, and can serve you. So let us hear your feedback. Thank you, Paula. All right, Patricia. Okay, Patricia, you're on as a panelist.
Yeah, I have seen it. I cannot put the video. Now. All right. Nope, doesn't work. Okay, then I just do it without videos, no problem. For me is to laugh first, go first. This is really, really, that caught me up. That is really, really great, because I really think sometimes we think, or I think, the other have to tell me, I really want to go in, I really want to commit, I do now, and I'm just waiting if they are doing it. And so this is something I really think in this first chapter, this is so great to inform and to be aware of it, that we have to go first and really to believe before anybody does something. I hope you understand my English.
Totally. You have excellent English.
Thank you. Also, this is something I really, I always believe, but sometimes I really have to admit, I think you could do better, you could do more, I just wait for you, but to laugh first, go first.
Right.
I'm so looking forward for this year, for all these webinars you're doing now.
Thank you so much. I hear what you're saying about going first. It can be frightening, and it requires a lot of vulnerability to go first. We risk, it feels like we're risking our, I don't know, I think you know what I'm saying, right? Like vulnerability is when you feel like you could be hurt. And so going first, a lot of times feel like you're putting yourself out there too much. And so if they say, you know, what if they say no? Or what if they think I'm being too forward? Or what if they think I'm just being pushy? Or what if they think I'm I'm stupid? You know, I mean, relationships are such perfect testing ground for our willingness to go first, because over and over, and Natalie and I are learning this so much with our teenagers. You have to go first. You have to, even when they're, you know, turning their nose up at us and calling us stupid and saying, I don't need you, and saying, give me space. It's our job to love them anyways, to love them more, to just keep pouring into them And gosh, it's hard. I thought I knew something about parenting until I had teenagers. I'm learning I don't know anything. So going first is a key principle.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on and for that feedback, Patricia. Okay, anybody else have any feedback? One of the things I'm realizing is there were some stories that I thought of that I put in later chapters that I think I'm going to pull back into this chapter. So the content today was a little dry, a little light on stories. So I'm definitely going to be changing that in the manuscript. So any other feedback? Great. Well, thank you all so much for being on with us today. I'll be posting this recording. Gosh, where am I going to post this? Maybe I'll set up a page on natalieandy.com. Anyways, I think I have all of your email addresses. Shoot, I should double check that. Go ahead and put your email address in the chat if you want to get a link to the recording. Maybe if I put it on the webpage, then people can post their comments there. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see. If it did capture your email, I don't see it here. So thank you for posting your emails here. Okay. So I will save this recording, probably at natalieandy.com, and then send this out to you. And obviously, the more feedback we get, the better. We are firm believers in failing faster. And so the best way to fail is to get feedback fast. So we want to learn and improve. So thank you again so much for being on with us today. We'll be on again the 4th Wednesday of next month. And until then, feel free to share this link with friends and give us all the feedback we can get. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.